Thank you everyone for joining. I know this is a challenging time for a lot of people, and most of us are working from home. So I just wanted to take a second to say thank you for still finding a time to tune in, even with all the challenges that are happening right now. Today we're going to talk about creative optimization, specifically creative testing. So we're going to touch on the process, how to approach it, how it's done practically, the KPIs, how to measure creative testing. Then we're also going to talk about some industry trends and pre-launch strategies. Towards the end, we're also going to talk about something that I know that's burning right now, which is the current situation, the coronavirus, and how this is affecting ASO and how ASO could fit into everything that people are seeing. I'm Noga Shapiro. I'm a senior ASO consultant at StoreMaven. I help top mobile brands build an ASO strategy, specifically plan, execute, and analyze App Store creative tests that eventually, hopefully, lead to more installs. As part of my role, I get to work with super creative, original, and just really smart people. And I'm really happy to have some of them here with me today. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Starting with Daria.
Hi, I am Daria Antonova, lead marketing coordinator at Playkot. I coordinate all marketing activities in relation to Age of Magic game. And until recently, I took care of App Store optimization and user acquisition for Age of Magic and Super City games.
And Anna.
Hi guys and welcome. Also thank all of you for coming here today. I'm Anna. I'm head of ASO consulting department at AppFollow. For those who are probably not familiar with our company, we are app monitoring and store performance analysis platform, which helps developers to understand all these ASO metrics, etc. So our department works with AppFollow clients and help them ASO their applications. So we provide this feature as an outsource. We are working with both text, graphics, and reputation management and cover all these aspects. Hope the internet connection will be stable today and we all can enjoy our session.
Sure. Thank you. And Jordan?
And yes, hello everyone. So I'm Jordan Grenier, working at Ubisoft as a marketing analyst. So basically, I'm in charge of all the ASO stuff, A/B tests, keyword recommendation, and also working on specific analysis on the CVR, on the store page when needed.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining me today. So we divided this webinar into a few topics. And we'll start off with the process of App Store creative testing. So actually, we got a question from Tamir from Yellowhead that asked about the key elements of App Store creative optimization operation. So I'll just give a high-level intro to the different steps in the process. And then I think we'll touch upon all the different steps in the next few questions. So what does the operation look like, or what are the different steps in App Store creative testing? The first one is prioritization, looking at your different games, different geos, deciding which one you want to optimize next. Then comes the market research, understanding where you're positioned in the industry and what you're doing at the moment. Then we have translation of the ideas that come in the market research into creatives, then the test and the analysis part. So moving on to you guys, how do you test App Store creatives right now practically?
Yes, sure. Maybe I can start.
Cool. Go ahead.
How do we test App Store creative? So in Ubisoft, basically, marketing team is sending assets recommendation to the studio. based on several things. So it can come from market studies, benchmarks from the competition. It can come from previous A/B tests we did, or also from creatives performing well in user acquisition. Then we discuss with the studio, and regarding their planning, we start to create the assets. So the assets can be done by the studio itself or by the HQ. And after that, we start A/B testing the new assets. So depending on which store we are willing to test the assets, it's different. We test icons, feature graphics, and screenshots on the Google Play console. And for iOS, we are using StoreMaven. So it's more to test app previews and also screenshots, but it's more limited on StoreMaven.
So for us, as soon as I'm speaking more on behalf of the agency side, the processes can be a little bit different regarding this processes side. As soon as we are never a part of internal team of any product with which we are working with, we usually are dealing with like different people from the product side. And this is very important with whom you are communicating, because sometimes it's a separate manager who are in touch with us, and sometimes it's the whole team involved, including the designers, the brand manager, the product manager, and even sometimes we are connected with the UA managers as well. So for us, everything is starting with the ideas. So we are finding all these ideas as a offers, and then the marketing and competitor analysis is a huge part of all these things. The great challenge is for us to sometimes convince the product that beautiful images are not a part of the marketing strategy and should be divided. So we're creating the hypothesis plan for all these graphic assets, as Jordan listed already. They're the same. And then after this plan is approved, we're starting to process with all these creations, etc., etc. And then we're starting with A/B testing.
As for us, I think the process is pretty similar, but we use different tools. We usually test App Store creatives using Google Play A/B testing tool, and it is pretty good, but not perfect, because Google sometimes attributes paid installs to organic. So if you have active user acquisition, it can influence your test results. And we had an experience with testing creatives with Apple Search Ads creative set feature. And this is even less perfect tool because testing costs money and there are not so many options for testing. And also we test creatives with Facebook ads, and results in terms of CTR are usually relevant to the same results in stores. I mean, if any creative has a high click-through rate as an ad creative, we see the same high click-through rate as a part of store graphics. This method works great with creatives appearing on search engine results page. It is an icon for both platforms and video thumbnails for App Store.
Great. Thank you. I think these are all really interesting ways to test your App Store creatives. From my side, I want to add, from what I see, why to use a tool like StoreMaven would be if you want to specifically test for an audience that's monetizing really well or that's really important for you. Or if you want to get additional metrics like engagement, gallery scroll, video watch time, stuff that are a bit more complex than just the CTR, that helps you build a strategy and not just identify a winner. But obviously, each platform has its own benefits and disadvantages. Okay, I think another question that relates to that is what are the KPIs and generally what are the goals of creative optimization? Abigail from Gameloft and Angelina from Joypack asked this specifically, and many other people. So I know this is a really important question that people are asking. So, guys.
Well, that's really true, because this is kind of a burning question. As soon as like everyone wants to measure all these things, and of course, in installs and in revenue. So these are the key metrics we at the end of the day we will focus on. But as soon as like all cases are unique, no one can estimate all these KPIs thing in absolute figures. So for example, this creative test will give you like plus 100 installs per day. So that's why it is important to understand on which metrics to look on and analyze during this test and after these tests are ended. So for example, of course, like if we're speaking about the A/B testing in Google Play, we can see the average benchmark by category. So we somehow can look at these benchmarks and these figures and compare our figures with this. And when you're testing anything, you can understand like which value you will have after this test. But it is very important to measure not only the CR changes that you can see, like this conversion rate from product page views or from impression to install, but also take a look at the retention rate, because like all these product metrics are very important. For example, if your A/B tests performed really well, but you have the huge drop in your product metrics after all, so probably something went wrong with these creatives or with this common sense of your test. So it is very important not to only focus on these external metrics like conversion rate, but also take a look at these internal metrics somehow.
Great.
Yeah, I totally agree. We are doing quite the same. Of course, we are looking at the CVR first in the top geos to measure the direct impact of the changing we are doing. But of course, we also look at in-game KPIs like you said, the retention or monetization. If I can give you a small example, for example, on South Park Fun Destroyer, the main audience today is, of course, South Park fans. But we are currently trying to optimize the store page for card games player. So basically, this audience is way harder to reach and way more expensive. So it first degrades, it decreases the conversion rate on your store page. But then when we look at the retention and monetization, it's performing better than South Park fans. So don't look don't look only at your conversion rate, but yeah, try to keep an eye on the in-game KPIs for sure.
Great, I love that example. Thank you. So I just want to talk a little bit about the measurement of the impact of creative. I think you guys touched upon it just now. But John from Pure Blue Entertainment asked, what are the KPIs outside of the test? So like you said, retention and in-game metrics are definitely a way to look at it. But I think if you want to measure the impact of your creatives and creative changes, there are two main ways to do that. The first one would be if a company decides that they believe in testing and they invest a lot in the methodology. They make sure that the traffic that they're sending to the test is the most suitable one, and they're using a reliable tool for testing, and they set up the test correctly. Then they can say, we believe in what the test is showing us, and we don't need to look outside of the test. The second approach would say, no matter how how much I invest in the methodology, I want to measure the impact of the creative change outside of the App Store. And I think this approach becomes a lot more complicated because the App Store is such a complex ecosystem that where everything affects everything. Impressions go up. One day you're featured. Sometimes outside of the App Store, events affect stuff that you're seeing. But it just because it's difficult to measure doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It just means that it will be a lot more time consuming. So I think both approaches are really valid and impactful, but each company should realize how much time they're willing to invest in order to analyze the impact and which approach suits them better.
Yeah, and go to this question in a more complex way, not to focus only on one metric.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'll move on to the strategy part. So the first question from Danny from Yahoo and Evgeny from G5 Games. They ask how to come up with good test ideas and good hypotheses.
This is a good and tricky question, actually. From our side, we usually take a look, first of all, of course, on the competitors, so what the industry is doing, and there probably are some trends, but I will not focus on it now. There is a good tactic to find the new ideas, is to take a look more wider, so not to only focus on the App Store pages of the competitors, but also going to the web or even its offline banners like TVs, etc. Because if you're going on some different markets, like for example Asia or Arabic countries, no one will know the culture and the mentality better than the locals do. So it is very important to focus on the local market and to check it, like the trends and tendencies, even the colors, what they are preferring. So go just like in Google and visit some local sites, and of course check out the locals competitors, because they are definitely know what they are doing. This is a good way to find some ideas.
Great, thank you. Anyone else would like to add? I know I have my ideas for that as well. Okay, so I think in order to come up with hypotheses, if you want to really broaden the ideas of your testing, try to find ideas anywhere you can. And this could be just browsing through reviews of the app or the game, seeing what specific users really like about the app and how this could be generalized and turned into a hypothesis. Or looking at the app update and specific content that's new in the app. This could be turned into an idea, or kind of a broader marketing strategy, like Jordan mentioned, kind of going after strategy gamers. What are they going to appreciate about the game? Also looking at UA campaigns. UA is something that is changing very often, and maybe some ideas that are demonstrated in the user acquisition ads could be taken onto the App Store without obviously being too repetitive. And really anything that could affect the users and what they want to see when they look for a game or when they click on an ad.
Nice point.
Yeah, totally agree on that. Maybe one thing we didn't mention that much is, of course, from the previous A/B test you did, that can give you very good insights. So yeah, don't don't forget this one.
Yeah, definitely, good point. Okay. So this is also something that I saw that someone asked on the chat, Georgina. How does your strategy differ between iOS and Google Play? And Georgina specifically asked if you can take the winner from Google Play and apply it to iOS. So from my side, this is not a best practice, and almost always I see different variation winning on iOS compared to Google Play. But please, guys, if you have your take on that.
Well, I can start as you want. Daria, maybe?
Yeah. Welcome.
Okay, cool. I would say that we don't have really a very different strategy between iOS and Google Play. The way we are working the most is we are first testing the assets on the console, so on Google Play, because it's free. So it gives you like the first main trends of which asset is performing better. And then we are kind of backupping this data on tests on iOS. So to be sure the trend is the same on both stores. So the method is different. Like I said, we are not testing the same way on both consoles. Assets we are testing are not always the same. And for sure, the geos in which one we are doing the test are not the same, because we are only testing our assets in the top 3 or top 5 maybe main geos in terms of revenues. So it's not always the same geo. So you have to take this into account. For example, the Chinese store is not open on the Play Store is not open in China. So for China, we only test the assets on iOS, etc. So yeah, that's basically how we work. And something maybe to mention, on Google Play, you can use assets that are not in-game footage, versus on iOS, where you have to use only in-game footage. So that's something to take into account when you are creating your assets, mostly the screenshots, because you can be rejected on iOS if your screenshots are not in-game.
Definitely.
China is still like a different world, and you need to have another tactics in working with Chinese market in all aspects. So,
for sure. Someone just asked, what do you think the impact of videos are in Google Play versus iOS? And I think this is something that's very, very relevant right now. So in general, in iOS, videos autoplay, and in Google Play, they don't yet. Google hinted that they're going to launch autoplaying videos. We haven't seen that on the product page yet, but we did see them changing the flow of playing the video. So the video now plays from within the gallery as opposed to sending you to YouTube. And from the initial test that we've ran, we saw that more users are clicking to play the video, but they're watching the video for a shorter amount of time because it's much easier to go back to the product page and to just pause the video. So this is something to take into consideration that's happening now.
Yeah. Today in Ubisoft, we are not testing videos yet on Google Play. We saw that less than 15% of people are really watching the video. So we mostly focus on the thumbnail, and the video is more for iOS, right?
Yeah, definitely. Where in iOS, we see that the view rate is more than 70%. And as you said, on Google Play, it depends on the category, but 10-15% max view the video. So definitely worth more investing in the feature graphic. Okay, can you guys give an example of an insight that you found using creative testing that you decided to share with another team in the company?
Sure. Actually, in the chat, there was a very interesting question regarding this paid campaigns and how they related to all this testing process. We usually share all the results, not all the results, of course, like in almost all cases, we share the results with the UA teams, because like all these ad campaigns that company are like having in the same time, it is better to unify it with the store creatives, because otherwise you may first of all attract irrelevant users. So for example, if you advertise something more irrelevant for your product but more catchy, you will get irrelevant users at the end of the day. But of course, like there is no, sometimes it is not really good to just like copy paste all this creative, but this is the better way to attract really relevant users. And of course, you should take into account all these paid campaigns and take a look at how they are changing while are you testing. So for example, if you provide like set up different tests in organic traffic in Google Play, for example, and you have a boost in conversion rate, but in the same time you have a big drop in all your UA campaigns, this is definitely a bad situation. So it is better to find a compromise and the golden middle in all these channels. Nika, I hope we answered your question.
Yeah, Jordan or Daria, do you have anything to share from your experience?
Nothing specific. I would say overall, we try to apply all the transversal learnings we have on the test for all our games. Maybe like for Hungry Dragon, usually the learnings we have are specific to each game, so it's quite difficult to really replicate the result for all games. But maybe something to mention on Hungry Dragon, we saw that on the screenshot, the captions without banner perform better. So we are currently testing it on other games to see if we see the same trend. But yeah.
Okay. Cool. So moving on to prioritization. How do you prioritize between apps or specifically games to focus on?
I can start here. When prioritizing between different games or even assets to test, we try to evaluate the effort from these changes. Like if we will test the icon for game A and assume that this new icon will have a 20% higher click-through rate and the conversion rate will keep the same, will give us this will give us 20% more installs for all geos.
Mm-hmm.
And if another experiment with new Chinese screenshots for game B, where screenshots do not appear on the search results page, it will keep the CTR the same and makes conversion rate 10% higher. It will bring us 10% more installs from China for game B. So here we know our future impact in installs, and we know lifetime value for these users, for organic users from game A, and for organic users from China from game B. We can just multiply these numbers and get estimates in real money for prioritization. Numbers.
Cool.
Yeah, everything like revenue is more important, of course.
Yeah, focus on the top 3, top 5 geos max in revenues first, I would say. And also on our side, we tend to prioritize more on the most recent games because they are the ones needing the more support. And then we focused on the games generating the more downloads and revenue, I would say.
Cool. And staying on the prioritization part, how do you prioritize between assets to test?
Yeah, maybe I can start. So we mostly, for most of our game, we mostly focused on the first impression. So basically on the icon, the thumbnail, and the first screenshots. This is for both stores, and on iOS, we also focus a bit more, like I said, on the app preview instead of the thumbnail on GTP because of the autoplay, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. But there is also more practical approach. I still I think that still the most frequent testing object are screenshots because due to several reasons. So first of all, in App Store we cannot customize the icon for different geos. So even if you have very successful tests in Google Play, we cannot customize them for App Store. And there is still a one icon for all geos. And the second thing is that screenshots may influence on like this, even the small changes in screenshot, you may influence the conversion rate significantly. So even changing the slogans or the screenshot order may boost your conversion very, very big. So screenshots rules in this topic.
Great. And I think one related question is how do you, if you have a lot of creatives that you would like to test, how do you, for example, if you have 10 icons, I think so first of all, you want to make sure that to choose the ones that you think will have the highest chances of winning, but also try to choose ones that are really different from each other, because a lot of times we see that if the variants or the specific creatives are too similar between the variants, then the test would not be conclusive, or the results are not going to be as interesting if you test really different concepts between the variants.
Great.
Okay, I think someone just asked also, what is the minimum period of time to run a test? So from my side, the best practice would be to run it for at least a week, specifically because we want to get a sample size for every day of the week. I think in now specifically, the week and weekday are kind of mixed, and it looks a bit different. Because people are staying at home even during weekdays. So sometimes we see that we can actually conclude tests a bit faster, but we still always prefer to run it for at least a week and up to 2-3 weeks. Longer than that would also kind of mess up the validity of the test.
Yeah, totally agree, because like all the clients every time ask, like, what if we see the results on the second day and we have lots of traffic, so do we need to stop the test? It's really better to wait and collect more reliable results. And also someone asked about the landscape or horizontal screenshots, like which one performs better. It depends. Based on my practice in App Store, it's still the horizontal ones performs better, because you can put even free screenshots in the search page. So it's better to use those one. But for if we're speaking about the games, of course, the landscape screenshots are usually converts better. But this thing should be tested, of course. And the another question is, I'm just like reading the chat.
Sure.
Another question is about the localization of the screenshots. It's definitely worth the money, because like if you have English content, for example, for some different views where English is not really popular, you will not collect any traffic, because like all these users will prefer localized content instead of English one. So it's definitely a thing that you should do. Even not only localization, like the translation, but the adaptation of the content. So for example, using some native images, native characters, etc., etc.
Okay, I see also another question. What ad networks do you leverage to send traffic to your A/B test on StoreMaven? So basically from StoreMaven side, we support any network that would support mobile web traffic. I think the more important question is what type of traffic you're looking to optimize for. Because if you're looking to optimize, or a lot of traffic is coming to your app from branded search, you might want to try to bring in users to the test page that have a similar mindset of users that are searching for your brand specifically. And if you're bringing browse traffic, which is a lot less targeted and has much lower CVR normally, then you might want to adjust your targeting that you send to tests as well. You could use networks that are a bit less targeted than Facebook, and a bit broader, or not optimized towards installs, and just optimized towards clicks, because that would reduce the conversion rate. Okay, someone is asking about soft launch, and so let's talk a little bit about pre-launch testing. Let's start with you guys. Any experience to share regarding pre-launch or soft launch?
Yes, sure. On our side, basically how we are working is first we have to, I would say, to position the game. So we are working with the consumer market knowledge team based on market studies and benchmark of the competition. We are defining the key message of the game, so like the main features, and then we start to A/B test. So it's not like a real A/B test, it's more like a concept test first, to be sure that the feature we are working on are appealing to the players and extra. And depending on the result we have, we adjust the content of the game. And when we are closer to the launch, we are doing like real A/B tests with almost the final store page. And basically, yeah, that's how it works. Maybe about the pre-registration, we are doing this more and more. So basically, you can upload your game on the store, and people can pre-register before the launch. I would say it works better than before, but it's more useful for mid to hardcore games than casual ones, because there is like the appeal is higher on mid to hardcore games, especially when the brand is more famous. I would say it's not always necessary to add a prereg on your game when it's on casual games. Yeah.
Okay. And I think related to that, a few people are asking whether you should localize for soft launch or wait until you've optimized in English first.
It depends on the budget, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Focus in English or the countries you are able to localize yourself. And once the game is live, maybe start to optimize. But at first, unless you have a limited money, focus on the top countries. Yeah.
Okay. Great. And how do you come up with a title for a new game?
Oh, this is actually a very interesting one, because we had like recently, 1 month ago, we had a client who launched one more match-3 game. So there is a huge challenge to understand like what title to use, because there are like 4 types of common things. It's like something mansion or something hotel and something what else, like a village or something else. So there are different names, the brand names, and same versions of like several types of how you can what you can add to the brand name. And we tested this with the UA channels, so like with Facebook or something. And this is like very interesting process, because you just like make all this creative the same and just put different types of these brand names, and of course looking at the CVRs. So it's a very good way to understand which position your game will take in the store. And I cannot tell like what win, but this was very interesting test. And if you have the money and budget for this kind of process, definitely should do this, because you will find out some interesting insights in this case.
Okay, great. Jordan or Daria, anything to add?
Well, basically we are doing split test on Facebook, but before the split test, we are trying to reduce the list, because studios can come with a very long list of titles at first. So first we are doing an ASO, I would say, an ASO review of each title. So we are looking at the potential of each keyword in each title, and then this way we can reduce the list to 5 or 10 titles max, and then doing a split test on Facebook. So it's basically a clickbait, but yeah, that's how it works.
True.
So I think I'd like to talk a little bit right now about the impact that we're seeing with the current situation, and then we might still have time to answer some more questions. So do you guys want to start by sharing stuff that you're seeing in terms of metrics in the live store?
Probably the guys from the product will share the insight first, because we have like a bit different experience, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for us, we didn't see any impact on ASO for our games. I see an increase in installations from App Store search, but I can't say that this is due to the current situation. because some time ago we already saw similar figures. But we see a huge impact on user acquisition, like way more impressions and lower CPMs.
Yeah. Yeah, on our side, we see that the engagement on our games is higher. So that's really interesting for us. Now, outside the game, of course, the search volumes are higher, but honestly, I didn't took the time yet to add new keywords, like, I don't know, people maybe are typing games when you are bored or things like that. I still didn't took the time to get a deeper look at it for now.
Okay. From my side, from what I'm seeing, it really varies from game to game, from app to app. Some of them are saying increases in downloads or decreases or increase in opens. Even within a category, there could be large differences. And so we're still in the early phases of analyzing the impact of everything that's happening. One thing that we did see was that apps that have a social aspect as part of the game, for example, player versus player or in-app chat or something that's a bit social, tend to have an increase. So people are kind of looking for more human interaction in this type of isolated world that we're living in right now. But it's also an opportunity, I mean, without being too insensitive, if you have this type of aspect in your game, it might be the time to put it a bit more center and in the front of the App Store to let people know that this is something that they can find on the app. And also something that a lot of people are looking for right now is entertainment. And this is a big aspect or the main aspect maybe for a lot of gaming companies. So do let people know that they could take this small moment of the day to feel better and be entertained. For apps that are non-gaming, because I know some of our audience are non-gaming, so there are also ways to repurpose value proposition. So for example, food delivery, highlighting that you offer contactless delivery or sanitary delivery. This is something that could be very meaningful to clients right now. Finance apps, instead of showing investment opportunities, maybe highlighting the ability to monitor different markets and monitor the situation. I don't see a lot of apps doing that at the moment. I saw DoorDash updated their screenshots to show contactless delivery. And I think that there is an opportunity to better cater to what users are needing right now, given the situation. So I think it's a good time to think of all your value propositions and not just ones that worked well until now, and try to see if there's something that could be better applied and demonstrated a bit more front and center now.
Yeah, actually, just like a step in this conversation also, I agree with you guys, because like lots of people expected a huge boost in the traffic, so like the organic and of course all the other channels. But in our cases also, there is not really, like, it depends, of course, on the industry. If we're speaking about the gaming, there is a boost in the traffic, but there is not like a huge differences. The one interesting case that we had now with one of our clients is that the organic uplift became bigger. So for example, I cannot, of course, tell the figures, but they launched the campaign like half a year ago, and they didn't change anything like significantly. But the organic lift for this campaign was 5 up to 7%, and now it's more than 30. So somehow, like the board situation influenced on this thing, because they didn't like change anything in the campaigns or something like that. So this probably you can try to like invest more in your paid campaigns, so to see the to gain more from this situation, but we also cannot see huge differences in the traffic boost. Sometimes like people are complaining that they have like slight drop in installs, even like that. But of course, like all the product metrics as DAO or MAU, they are growing, and retention rate also.
Okay. So I think we can go back to answer a few questions from the chat, unless one of you want to add on to that topic. No. Okay. So what are acceptable churn rates before we decide that drastic changes are needed?
Something you can take into account is the benchmark that the Google Play Console gives you. So it gives you an idea of where you are positioned compared to similar apps. They are not saying exactly which ones, but basically the similar apps to yours. First, you can take into account if you are below the median. Of course, your games need improvement on the store page, and then you can adapt this method on the different countries, and yeah, that's the first steps.
Okay. And a few people asked, do you see a difference in ranking strong keywords between apps with in-app purchases and without in-app purchases?
Do you see different in ranking strong keywords?
If the question is about like the keywords positions or like rankings in the categories, this is different things. In the categories, I think it's the same. It's just like different categories for free and like paid apps. And as like speaking about the keyword positions or something like that, nothing matters like in this case. Or you just like can put the keywords in the app purchases and promote them separately. For example, we're speaking about the App Store, but none really like really changes.
I'm not sure the store takes into account if your app has in-app purchase or not. Maybe
not really.
Yes.
The Apple should care about like they do care about this.
I guess they care about the revenue, the global revenues of your game. So yeah, the revenue are a score, like say at some point it's a weight that gives to your app a certain score. Yeah. Of course, we are not able to know how much, but it may be more important on iOS than on Google. That's right.
Okay. Any other questions you'd like to answer? I'm trying to.
I'm scrolling also.
I had a question above. Let's see, Doga's question. I can't find it. I'm sorry.
There is a question about the predictions on ASO strategies taken by startups related to the impending global recession. The strategy is actually one, I think, try to make a good product. This is the first important thing that also both app stores like Google Play and App Store do cares about. And after you made a good product with the low crash statistic and low like ANR statistic, you can promote it with all the ways that are are in the world. So if we're speaking about the organic promotions, it is ASO for sure, the text one and the graphic one. But if you are on the start, it is important to boost your traffic with some paid campaigns help. So it's better to combine both strategies and make the unique complex way of marketing for the product.
Okay, and I think we'll only answer one last question from Doga. If you have more than one variant to test with the current version of your assets, do you prefer testing 3 variants at the same time with split audience? If so, how do you apply the best performing variant to make another test between the winner one and the current one? If you have more than one variant.
I'm looking for the question also.
It is
Too
important.
complicated.
Well,
how much impact you see in ASO after Google changed the way most of the categories are ads related?
maybe just on the number of variants question. Of course, you can test more than 2.
Okay.
We split audience. I guess it means like you split equally the audience between the 3 variants, 3 or more you're testing, and then you apply the best performing one. Yes. And then you can apply the best performing one if it's really increased the CVR, and you can also iterate on this one, this specific, like the winner one, to make sure you have the best variant of this concept of the winner one.
Yeah, and then you can make a vice version test, like VA test, and check it one more time whether it performs, like whether the results are real.
Yeah, be careful with the Google Play results sometimes.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I think we answered most of the questions. We'll probably go over everything and try to reach out separately if there is something that we still didn't answer. If you guys want to add anything to finish, did I skip anything that you really wanted to talk about, or?
Well, not for me, not me.
Okay, cool. So thank you so much for joining today. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, speak to you soon.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For having.
Bye-bye.
Bye.